All right. John, we had a big release this week that I think has some interesting backstory to it because backup giant and frequent field day presenter Veeam announced their new version 12 software. And, it's going to be able to back up to a variety of targets as one backup software should. But one of the things that does have the industry a little bit excited is the fact that you can now back up to a MinIO object store. Instead of backing data to your Amazon S3 buckets, why not just change the S3 target on your system to back up to MinIO, which is something you can run on-prem? And I know that this is exciting for a lot of people because some organizations still don't allow you to back up to the cloud. And if you were worried about whether or not that's going to take a performance hit, you probably shouldn't, because during their testing, they observed 12 gigabytes per second of throughput, which is one of the fastest backup targets that they've ever tested. So they're very excited about that, both Veeam and MinIO. But John, as someone with a little bit of a storage background and kind of riding the wave of what this looks like in the future, why would you want to have an on-prem object store as your backup target for a software like Veeam?
One of the key things that you want to look at. So Veeam, congratulations on your announcement yesterday. I was actually watching the launch that was happening and working closely with them on some of it. But to have your object storage locally next to, say, your application or on premise, right? So a lot of folks have not actually migrated and moved to the cloud completely, and applications are still sitting there within their data center. If you want to back up to S3, you have the latency across it. You're only actually as good as your internet connection, right? So it's got to traverse over and come back. There's costs associated with that. But if you're backing up locally, it's the latency. So the demonstration that happened for MinIO is actually one of the fastest directed targets available for Veeam backup and replication. Not only that, MinIO performs capacity in both of the performance and the capacity tier. Before, it was only the capacity tier that was available to it. This simplifies your whole entire backup architecture, operations, and decreases the potential for failure and error. When you talk about failure and error for your backup and your replication, remember the bits got to go across. They got to make sure that they're valid and correct and that everything's got to be stored. What if you roll it off into Glacier and then you got to move it back? But if you have it locally, the latency for the backup is very critical. That's happening. Okay. So Tom, you mentioned that it was measured the throughput with backup speeds of 12,000 MBs, or actually 12 gigabytes, going through the vSphere cluster to their actually MinIO cluster. And this was actually very critical in utilizing vSphere. But it's really actually simplifying the vSphere host and would have increased their throughput and their latencies. And, I like this. I like this article. I like what they've actually done for it and what they're testing and benchmark. I think it provides huge flexibility, not only for the storage, the read writes that happen for your application. Remember, if your read or your writes are slow, your user performance and experience is bad. Things will slow, the latency, the backup. If you're going through a number of nodes for your backup, so in traditional data center thing, you have a node that writes out to different storage or disk, and depending on the size of those, you can actually get a buffer credits that are happening. And this will actually cause bad application performance. So congratulations to MinIO on the performance and Veeam for their release yesterday.